Hello and welcome to episode 40 of Creative Walks. Today I am actually walking close to a big street close to my house. So apologies for the sound, I'll try to minimize it in post. But it's basically the time I found to be able to record this for you guys. So first, apologies for not recording episode in a couple days in a row. To be honest, I had a couple of bad days, and this doesn't really happen often, but I felt a little bit demotivated and unmotivated, I should say. And unmotivated in the sense that I didn't feel like the daily thoughts I was having would be useful, because they were more on the rant and the somewhat sad part. But all is good now. I am back to my old jovial self, haha. But so today I wanted just to give some thoughts on two things that I had good experiences on the weekend. One of them is that I went with my wife, with Yana, on our little artist date. That was we went to learn some traditional Ukrainian painting style kind of a things. Is a thing we're trying to do where she brings one activity in 1 week that we can do, and I bring another one on the next week, and then we sort of like combine it into this fun date of learning or of just chilling. So we went to do this class on a specific kind of traditional Ukrainian painting, something she has done when she was very young, and I haven't done at all, but I've seen a bunch. And we actually ended up recording a video where we talked about that experience, and that's coming out soon. But I wanted to share with you one experience that I think it's one insight that I didn't say on that specific episode that I recorded with her, but I think it's interesting. It's a good idea to think about, which is there is a lot of talk about trying to do, and I've talked about this many times on this podcast before, which is to try to try to do one artwork or one sort of activity where you can feel like a beginner again, something that is outside of your, let's say, not comfort zone, but of your areas of expertise. And I always have a lot of new things that I'm trying to learn, but in this case, it was something that, like painting, had one interesting takeaway, which was, how do you get some benefit from learning a different kind of artwork and applying on your own? Let me see if I can make this a bit more clear what I mean. I was learning how to do painting, and painting is by definition, although today you have Wacom tablets and things like that, but in general, painting is an analog activity. Whatever you do on paper stays there, right? So as a photographer and as a musician, you usually, let's say that I do a photo and I take a photo and then it doesn't work for some reason. I can check right away, and I can delete it, or I can take another one. And it doesn't have any canvas space. It's not there. Your mistake is not staring you in the face right there. In painting, that's the other way around. It's always there, whatever you do. And the funny thing is that, as with any art, you cannot just read about it or think about it. Your hands have to go through the motion, because you will never understand how a brush works or how actually anything works without actually going through the motion. And that's one of the things that I know that happen a lot with a lot of artists, is that they have this idea that, for example, I want to be a writer. And it's actually something I've been thinking about writing this novel and about writing this comic book. But last time I wrote a comic book or a novel, I was like 15. It was one of those funny kid stuff, right? I wrote a play and all that stuff, but it's not like as a professional artist, me going on and actually creating it. So I was thinking that's one insight I didn't say in that episode, but I thought it would be interesting to talk to you about today. This idea that you actually have to like walk the path and actually go and do the work to actually see if you like it or not. And to me, at least, the great thing that happened while I was doing that very, let's say, new idea was that I remembered a poem a phrase by a Brazilian poet. So now I'm walking down the underground here in Kiev, and one thing that happens sometimes is there are musicians playing music, and now it's super cold, so I didn't expect them to be here. But there's a guy playing guitar, there's a little girl coming and giving some money to him. It's kind of cute, very cute. Anyway, so I digress. It's kind of interesting. I thought when I moved here, you go on the underground, and it's like this passageway between streets. So you go on the underground and you see this life going on. There's like these musicians, and thought that was kind of an interesting visual metaphor to what actually happens in the world. But in any case, I was talking about this poet, this Brazilian poet, that said that life is like drawing, but without an eraser. So it's like as if you have pen and paper and you start drawing things, but you can never erase them. They will always be there, all your mistakes, all the great, beautiful things. And I think that's a great thing. I think actually in the end that's a fantastic thing. And in this case, with learning how to draw, I was thinking how you actually, in order to learn, you have to try to, for example, imitate a teacher and really concentrate and really pay attention. And you have to make mistakes faster, meaning you cannot hold back, you cannot expect that your first attempt will work. And I find that sometimes in other art forms, we kind of expect that. It's that idea of, I think, Bird by Bird that they were talking about, the shitty first draft. Again, pardon my language, but this idea that you have to get over yourself and actually get the first draft out of your head as fast as you can, because there will be resistance, there will be all sorts of things. And even on an interview with, I think the guy that created Pixar, they were talking about the Pixar movie, one of the first ones, or I believe, not one of the first ones, but one very important one, that Ice Age movie, which is awesome. I saw it with my nephews when they were like young, and it was so interesting to see that the screenplay and all the beats, they were fantastic. And what they were saying was that the first draft, the original version, had nothing to do with what ended up on the screen. It was actually terrible. I was thinking, oh, these guys are geniuses. How can they create something that is terrible? I would say, okay, so let's say 80% there, or let's say 50 or 60% there. But no, it was, you have to think through the creation. And of course, there are infinite paths to creating art. There is no one way. But I thought that was kind of interesting, that this idea that you have to work on your brush strokes, you have to actually go through the process and actually go through with it. That was very, very useful. And then I started thinking that I was talking about this project, this video project that I pitched to my wife on Friday, and we did it on Saturday and Sunday. But I was like going back and forth, should I do this? Should I not do this? I'll actually, in order to do it the way that I want, I'll have to really learn a lot more skills in video and in all these things. But then, and there's like, is it worth it? Maybe it's not worth it. Oh, but that's related to the ultimate goal and the dream. So, oh my God, what to do? So I came back to this idea of picking up the brush and trying to make mistakes faster. And that's one of those things that one idea incentivizes the other, and it's on the meta analysis. It's not like I'm going to pick up a specific skill from painting and then apply it to photography or video, although that actually, of course, will work. But it's more in the sense of freezing time, looking at yourself, looking at your skills, and comparing the lessons that you have from engaging with other art forms and how it can inform your own art form. And not in a technical way, but maybe in the way you approach it, or maybe in the way that it showcases some blind spots you may have. So that's it for today. I'm back. I will probably record a few, let's say, essays that are more, let's say, formal, or at least a little bit more on the rehearsed side, so I can have a backlog of, let's say, audio essays I can share with you guys whenever I have these down moments. Hopefully it won't be often, but anyway, thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you tomorrow. And I have no idea what this woman just said. I actually have to start learning Russian.